Rich Gussenberg,
Here.
Sean Kimball, Sarah Stevens Morling, Jeff Solon, Greg Rosenblatt.
Here.
Chris Daddy,
Here.
Megan Rockwell,
Here.
Dennis Ryu,
Here.
Chuck Neff.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from June 13th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second? Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. That's the- Oh, I'm sorry, one abstention.
All right.
Chairman's report, I have no report this time. Grants update on the Inflation Reduction Act. We had discussed it very briefly last time and was just wondering what was happening with the town council. I got a note, I sent a note to Sean, he sent a note back saying that it's on the agenda for the next meeting of the town council to approve the contract that Vince had put together with Company. So hopefully that's moving along. I just didn't want that to fall between the cracks. I'll leave it on the agenda so that Sean can update us at the next meeting. Bertha 5 incentive construction grant. Vince and Rich, if you guys could kind of give us an update.
You know, it was as I said last time, I was in this meeting, they talked about something that I hadn't heard of legislatively where there might be incentives for early education and or birth to 3. Kind of nebulous still. I know Rich was copied on the email.
Yeah.
We're trying to get some intelligence on whether or not we would be eligible, what's the legislation say specifically, so I don't have any further update than that.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add except that Jack Buckus from our office felt that because it's being talked about, it could be an additional funding source, but he also thinks that would be for new projects, for projects that are coming on, so that of a certain fiscal year. So if we were before, I don't think there's a grandfather clause, is I guess what I'm trying to say. But he also reached out to the state, tried to get an answer from them. He hadn't heard back. Emily Cifuentes from our office also put a call in to the state and hasn't heard anything back. So,
All right. Well, I'll put it on the agenda again next time around.
Yeah.
If we get more information on it. It would be nice if some additional money could come our way, but it seems like it's highly unlikely.
and we put calls back in to follow up. So
Okay.
we'll let you know if we hear anything.
The state may not know. Things
Generally,
get
when
passed
they
by the
don't call you back,
legislature,
that's probably true.
and it takes a while before the various agencies have a handle on what's going on. Action on submitted invoices, we have no
No,
invoices
none.
this time.
Correct.
Financial procedures, revision of the previously approved document, I sent you a copy of that. As you will recall, we had a discussion last meeting regarding the fact that the original document called for a finance subcommittee, and we really didn't want to get into the complexity of a subcommittee with agendas and minutes and that sort of thing. So I took some time with Jeff D'Onofrio, our attorney, and we went through and made some rewrites. I also wanted to just clarify, because I thought the original write-up, the way it was laid out, wasn't clear on when the chairman could give approvals and when not. So I wanted to clarify that and kind of break that off from the regular approval process. So you have in front of you a draft that Jeff D'Onofrio and I worked on, and I throw it out there for your input and feedback.
If I could just add, item D, which talks about, and for the most part, I think this is a good process that we would endorse. Item D, where it says upon approval of PCOs, they will be signed by the construction manager or CADIS architect and town designee. And then upon PCOs being executed, the construction manager will then issue a change order. What I would recommend is that that we collect PCOs, because a PCO might be for $5,000 or a couple $1,000s here or there. You don't want to be issuing change orders to the contract for every single PCO. Whereas we can bundle, and then we can present a change order.
Well, what wording would you suggest?
Well, how does that affect the subcontractors?
It wouldn't, because the committee has already acknowledged and approved a PCO. Now, I guess you can't they can't bill for it until there's a change order. You're right. That to that point, it would affect them.
What we'd like to see is actually, if I agree with you trying to bundle a bunch of these PCOs together, but trying to do that on a monthly basis is helpful. And that way it keeps the tracking of the changes kind of current. The state does have the 6-month rule where if you don't submit changes within a 6-month period, you could lose eligibility for reimbursement. So if you stick to a month, a month-to-month rule,
Yeah, I would agree with
and
that.
packaging.
If you do it on a monthly basis, Dennis, I don't think you're affecting the
No, I
subcontract.
agree.
Right. And usually if we get the signed PCO at one of the committee meetings, we typically authorize the work to proceed the following day, if it's time critical, so.
So again, what would you suggest the wording be?
So for item E, I would say that, rather than saying upon PCOs being fully executed, the CM will prepare change orders. Maybe we can add something that says upon PCOs being fully executed, the construction manager will, on a monthly basis, bundle the PCOs and present it as a change order to the committee.
So even though we meet every other month, you would do this on a monthly basis, not in every other, or
Yeah.
not every meeting.
And at that point, it's really just a pro forma approval, because you've already approved the PCOs. We're now just bundling them and presenting them as a change to the contract.
All right, so upon PCOs being fully executed, the construction manager will, on a monthly basis, prepare the change orders. Arcadis will review and submit to the school system CAO for town manager signature.
I think that works.
Other comments or feedback?
The only, so not to belabor the discussion, but is this committee going to be having 2 approvals of the same order of magnitude change order? The PC, how we've seen it in other locations, I think this, what you just described, was the committee, once the committee approves a PCO, that is the authorization from the committee to perform the work. Does this committee then need to approve a change order that encumbers that PCO, or is the owner prepared to sign it after that?
I think it's the first thing that you said, because the PCO authorizes the construction manager to proceed with the work. The change order will encumber it to the contract, so that's more of the paperwork that follows that.
So I just didn't know if it was, in the interest of being economical with the committee's time, and if we're only presenting these things once a month, maybe we bundle all the PCOs into a change order, or just so that you don't have to review the same thing twice and authorize it twice.
Yeah, and again, that's why I think it's a pro forma
Okay,
approval,
right.
because all you're doing is acknowledging that PCOs 1 through 10 have already been approved. You look it over. I mean, we'll all check the math, but then at that point, you're going to approve change order number 1, change order number 2,
You mean
so on and so
PCO
forth.
1 to 2?
1
Yes.
through 2.
Well, my concern would be, if you're only doing this monthly, you could have to wait 30 days to get an approval
Yeah.
of a change. Whereas under this process, at the very least, every meeting, you could be approving the PCOs, and then it gets bundled into the change order afterwards. So you've got the okay, it's moving ahead. You've got an advisory group that's giving feedback and reporting to the committee for any change orders that come up regarding its advisability and its the cost estimates or whatever.
I think doing it if you're doing it at every meeting, then you have we're like approving the change orders for them to go ahead, but you're making a contract adjustment each time. It's easy for stuff to just get lost where you're just gonna start running up the total on, cause you're doing it so often, it's hard to keep up with. Versus kind of separating it out where you give the approval on, you go ahead and put the change order, but then you have one change order to the contract amount that has like the 4 changes listed with it. That's a lot easier to manage. If that's what you're saying to do, I thought you were saying. Yes, yeah, okay.
No, no.
Yeah, so the PCO is just to the sub, the change order is a change to the GMP.
That's correct. Correct.
That's fine.
But the PCO then allows the
That
sub
gives,
to go ahead.
that gives
to-
us
for you to
authorization
go
to
ahead
start.
To do it without waiting as much as an entire month to get approval. I'm hoping there aren't gonna be a whole lot of changes, but, we'll see.
Hope's not a strategy.
But if there are, I wanna make sure that we can do it in a timely fashion, we don't get held up at all. That's really the key.
It sounds to me like the PCO approval is for the work, and the change order is for the dollars.
Right, to change the contract, to change.
And what starts the 6-month clock, the PCO?
It would be the PCO, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a couple things on the, like the timeline, I guess, for B. So you say that you'll have advisory members will report. I think there should be like a timeline for that, 'cause if we get something like the day before, I'm not gonna talk about it the next day, we gotta look at stuff. So there should be like a timeline in there for however many days we have to advise the, committee on it.
So are you looking at the
14.
third bullet down there, where it said advisory input will be gathered from 2 members? Is that what?
Yeah, it says, I was really looking at the 5th bullet, it says they'll report to the committee at the next meeting, but the next meeting could be like tomorrow.
Yeah, well, if you, on the third one, if you had some time, then when you come to the meeting, you would already have had an opportunity to look into
Yeah,
it.
I mean, 3rd bullet, 5th bullet, I
Yeah.
don't really care.
So,
It's
I
just
mean, if
a
you said in
timeline.
there, what would you want, maybe at least
I mean, at least like,
48 hours?
no, I think like a week time in between gives you maximum time you'd ever be out would be 3 weeks for a change order.
So let's run a scenario through, we're working on something and an issue comes up, the price from O&G comes out, they look at it, Rich goes over that, says that looks okay, contacts you guys, and meanwhile, we've got whatever, an electrician sitting waiting to hear whether, do you wanna have to take a week to look into that?
Well, I mean, is that the change order you're talking about? Is the guy's in the field and he decides that, oh, I can't do this because I need a change order for it, or is it during the time that they're looking at the contract drawings when they're either,
I guess either
planning
one
ahead
could
for
happen.
It's always in the field.
I guess either one could happen, but, you could be in a situation where, you're looking and saying, we've got an issue here, we've got, a subcontractor who's, stymied and can't move ahead until he gets it okay. So you wanna be able to move it in a somewhat timely fashion, I would think.
If there were if we were to use, let's say, some unforeseen condition, subsoil condition. So, site contractor puts a shovel in the ground, comes up with an unforeseen condition, brings it to O&G's attention, O&G brings it to our attention, we start talking about it, we realize, we've gotta get that out of the ground in order to keep moving, digging for footings or what have you. At that point, I think we would want to, address the subject with the advisory board and see if they're in agreement that, hey, look, we don't have a choice, right? The unsuitables have to come out of the ground. We have to, replace it with something else. We would look to, the advisory board just to acknowledge that there's a change that's going to happen, that we don't have an option to do other than, dig it out and then put.
So if this came up 3 days before one of our meetings, and you had to have at least a week, you'd have to wait till the next meeting, would have to wait a week or 2.5 weeks before you could move on it.
Yeah, I guess if there's the situation you described, what do you need me for? What am I gonna advise you to do that you can't just tell us at the meeting in 3 days?
But,
Where does the design team come in on this stuff? I mean, you said it goes to, like, the subcontractor will give it to O&G, then it goes to you. Don't these guys or Ganesh
Yeah,
get a
I
chance
think-
to look at it and say, this is 1,000 feet of pipe, no way?
So,
yeah,
do you
go
mind if I?
ahead.
So there are three ways that you modify contractual documents, contract documents. One is an architect's supplemental instruction that theoretically has no bearing on scope or time or cost of the work. It's clarification. The second one is a proposal request. Maybe the district's team says we want to change cubbies in this location. We generate a sketch, issue a proposal request to the subcontractor. Sometimes proposal requests are derived after RFIs that are in the field, like what we see a conflict here, what should we do about it? Oh, we need to modify something in the documents. Here's the proposal request. Technically, that work is not supposed to proceed until we get a cost back. The third mechanism is what's called the CCD, or Construction Change Directive, which in the event of unsuitable materials, of ledge, where there is when time is of the essence, we can issue a CCD for a not to exceed value amount to direct a contractor to proceed in order to not lose any time in the schedule. Or if it's, say, ledge, and we know what the quantity is, we will say proceed with that, or unsuitable material. That is not something that's kind of the last resort. That would be an instance if we were in between meetings, we would need to have a conversation with the chair, with the subcommittee, saying, this is something that's happening right now. If we don't issue a directive to proceed, we are not moving until we meet again. The mechanism for that is a CCD, which all contracts give the architect the power to issue that in the best interest of the project. Typically, those need to be signed by the construction manager, the architect, and the owner, in order for all three to acknowledge that it needs to move forward. So that would be your mechanism if something dire happens in between meetings. But we'd like to think that we can run a pretty orderly ship when it comes to these type of electricians changes that are in the field, et cetera.
And the process does specifically say that the architects, the owner's rep and the architects will review the potential change order request. So they're part of that process. In terms of just the chair approving something, we put a $5,000 limit on that, and under very specific conditions where, I don't want, to be coming to meetings saying, we spent an extra $500,000 over the last 2 weeks and you weren't here. That's why I want these guys involved in that process as much as possible. They have the background and experience there.
Also, just to answer Chris's question directly, I sign every PCO, so I need to be able to, we need to be able to review it and validate it,
So the three you listed, the clarification, that's just something that you issue, like
Yes.
it's an interpretation of whatever's in there. The proposal request is something that changes what's in the design that went out.
Yes,
Right.
and could affect cost or schedule
In either direction.
in either direction, yeah.
And then you would issue a CCD in lieu of, not in lieu of, you'd issue a CCD to keep that going, but they'd still submit a proposal.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I think a week's appropriate then.
Coming back to your original comment, though, in terms of, giving you some time, can we put in a time in there, like, 2 days or something like that, without going a full week?
No, I mean, I personally cannot do 2 days, so
You personally what?
I can't do 2 days. If you're gonna send me something and say, I need it in 2 days, I can't do that.
What would be the,
A week.
No longer than a week.
Hmm?
No longer than a week.
no longer than a week? Depends on the item, some you can turn
Depends
around
on
very
what day
quickly.
of the week we get the notification.
Okay. Would that be all right, no longer than a week?
Yeah,
After
I guess, still, if you get something, on, let's say we meet on Thursday and we get a change request on a Friday, you're still not getting anything though until the following meeting, cause we're gonna have to bring that back here.
Right.
Yeah, the other point, just to be clear, is, you know, all the math checks, all the agreements of the three parties beforehand, before you see it, every party's gonna review it, so that it should be in order.
Got it. So that brings me back to, what do you need me for? What am I actually doing then? What are we doing that this committee can't do?
We're kind of a filter.
But there's nothing to filter, it's already been filtered by our owner's rep, the construction manager, and the architect, so
And they
what do we
could
need
be
to do?
wrong.
Another set of eyes that's
Yeah.
unattached.
I mean, rather than having that discussion here every meeting, I think it comes to the advisors and it gets hashed out there, and then, you know, and then the advisors bring it to the committee in total, as a filter.
Yeah, and I don't know what'll happen, but you know, my previous experience with some other projects is that we often spend an inordinate amount of time looking at, studying, debating change orders in an entire committee. And what I'm hoping to do is to bypass that by having you guys coming in here saying, we've looked at this and we feel this is, you know, legitimate and appropriate, and that the rest of the group essentially says, great, let's move on.
Yeah, you know Chris is gonna ask questions.
You can always ask questions, that's fine.
That's what he's here for.
I'm sure the committee will entertain a motion to remove me from the committee. Right ahead.
And I can always ask questions, you know, whatever, but I think
But
that we
to-
all have respect for the opinion that you guys have, and so that,
Addressing Chuck's point though, just, you know, I've got one project that's a very big one that's ongoing, nearing completion, against all God's will, it seems. We're at like PCO 700, and I wanna say, in the past 3 years of construction, there's maybe been a half dozen of them where the committee has said, wait a minute, we need some more information, we need this and that. So it's really, the way I'm viewing it, just from being immersed in one right now, is that, you know, it goes through the full vetting process, and unless there's something that somebody on the outside remembers, or wait a minute, why in the world it's gonna go through, because, you know, these guys and whoever else of the design team is gonna be looking at it saying, wait a minute, I didn't screw this up, why are they doing it? You know, and they're gonna be vetting it, kicking it back and forth, so once it gets through all of them, chances are, numbers have been questioned, lengths, quantity, that sort of thing, and 95% of them should look good and should have the trust. I think it's just that one quick final check to say, wait a minute, I could swear we talked about this 3 months ago, why are we doing this again? And then that one will hit the table and we'll say, time out, we need some more discussion. That's at least the way I've seen it happen.
How about the funding source, whether it's owner contingency or our contingency? Those discussions usually happen, or?
No, that's gonna be something that we have to bring to the full committee. I think that's the type of thing.
Where it's getting funded from?
Yeah, I don't think that that the consultants make that decision. I think that's
Well,
got,
I'm just wondering if that's the working group or.
we can advise. I mean, obviously, we're gonna be able to tell them, you know, where we think it should come from. If it's construction, it should be coming out of the construction contingency. Not the GMP contingency, but if it's truly a change to your contract, something that should come out of the construction contingency. Owner's contingency is there to handle consulting costs or FF&E that, you know, that needs an increase. But, I mean, and we're seeing, you know, we've already made some changes with the owner's contingency now. But, yeah, I mean, if it's true construction, it comes out of construction contingency, we'll make those recommendations.
Is the list under the emergency procedure, is that inclusive, like I through 1 through 4? So it has to meet all those criteria?
Well, 4 is an example, but the other 3,
1 through
yes.
3?
Yeah, the other 3, change orders time sensitive, there are no acceptable alternatives, a change order is appropriate under the contract document. So if it meets those 3, then it's something that, as chair, I could move. If not, it should go through the regular process.
Right.
In other words, we're trying to limit what just goes to me. I don't want us going through a whole, and the $5,000 limit, you know, pretty much limits us to, you know, only smaller items anyway.
Within 2 days?
It's retired life, you can do that.
Yeah, I got a little more time, that's. Other comments or questions?
Just one other thing that we should probably address is the state change order process.
Yeah.
Because once this process, the PCO has gone through, gotten approved here, we issue a change order to our GMP, we need to issue a state change order, so that the town could actually get reimbursed for that work.
All right, and that would be
It would
what?
follow after all of these other steps have taken place.
So there'd be an F,
Yeah.
Yes.
and how would you word that?
Yeah, that's all it is though.
That's,
Yeah.
that's your job.
Yeah, we're gonna take that and we're gonna submit that. That's something that Emily is really good at doing. She'll make sure that those, you know, those changes get, you know, they get acknowledged up at the state, and then, you know, then the budget is modified so that, you know, we're showing that, you know, we're moving things from a contingency to a construction to the GMP, and that becomes an eligible cost.
And those have to be done within 60 days? You said
Those need to be done within 6 months of the start of the work.
6 months, okay.
6 months, but the entire process, meaning at the time they put a shovel in the ground.
Whatever
the-
document is gonna authorize the commencement of the work.
Correct.
So if that's the PCO, then that's the date of the PCO.
Right,
Yeah.
or the first ticket that's signed, or,
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
Yeah, if there's a date of
Is it-
January 1st, then that's gotta be, that's gotta get submitted to the state before the end of June.
So again, maybe that's just something you and I need just to sit down and
Yeah,
walk that
I'm
process
sure
through.
that we have that language anyway, so I'll get that from Emily. And we can incorporate that here.
So for here, if we just say the change order be processed submitted to the state by Arcadis as a number F or letter F.
Yeah, there's just an internal process that our accountants pay, well, our contract administrator actually
Yeah.
does the majority of the change order work, then it usually goes up to Emily for review, and then she processes it for
So
signature.
that should just happen automatically, this committee doesn't have to.
It's still
Correct.
gonna, it's
It's
still
just-
gonna need an owner's signature on it.
Correct.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, because it's a state
It's the
form.
superintendent and the finance director, or director of finance.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, I think probably Sean,
Oh, Sean,
Jeff and Sean.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's,
Oh, yeah?
that's,
Okay.
that's it.
Are you prepared to vote on this? You wanna, I'll take a motion if you are, if not.
Yeah, so what are you gonna do, modify it? Or how are you?
Well,
how are you
modified,
incorporating
the
changes?
third bullet down to say the advisory opinion shall be rendered within 1 week's time. And then,
But the
um,
opinion's not rendered within a week's time, that's what I was getting at.
what's that? I'm sorry.
The opinion isn't rendered within a week's time, right? Like, we're reporting back to the committee at the next committee meeting.
Right, but you're getting back to Rich in terms of,
But what is Rich doing with that information? Is he approving that, were we approving that PCO? That's what I'm saying.
well,
Nothing's happened.
if he comes to you saying, you know, here's a change order, we've looked at it, here's what we think needs to be done, and here's the cost. You two take a look at it and say, I got some real concerns, and here's my concerns. That would kick back to Rich to say, you know,
But I
our
think
advisory group has.
if we agree, we just write a memo to Rich and he puts it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Got it.
Yeah, but hopefully, if you guys have some issues, it would go back to Rich, go back to the group, and they would have to take a look at that before even we come back to the whole committee.
Yeah.
So if, you know,
So until we.
for
get the
instance, you're
green
looking and
light-
saying, hey, you know, these costs are really out of line. You know, you're asking me to put a new plug in for $2,000. Where did that come
It's
from?
cheap.
I like where you're going. We're gonna have fun.
Wow.
It's not a military job.
So, a toilet seat for, $1,000. So, yeah, so, you would be able to take a look at it, give some feedback, and then, if it got settled, fine. If not, you come back to us at our next meeting, and Rich may say, here's what we suggested, and you guys say, we've got some concerns there. And then it's thrown open to the whole committee. So that was one change. Under E, we said upon PCOs being fully executed, the construction manager will, on a monthly basis, prepare the change orders. And then there's an F, the change orders will be processed and submitted to the state by Arcadis.
Within 6 months.
No,
Well, you have a total of 6 months to,
from the PCO, so not from the time that we approve the change order.
so I left the time off of that. You're
In a
working-
timely manner.
You're working, you're working
Yeah.
under state time limits in a timely manner, that's,
There's just a couple other like editorial changes if you wanna incorporate that at the same time, or you rewrite this, or what?
sure, you want?
Well, it's just like the E, second bullet point, Heather pops up, but I think she's the school system COO, is that what that is?
Well, she's finance manager. and
It's
she's
just, it
been-
says Heather, though, like,
Yeah.
Where is
Who's
this?
It's paragraph
I saw that too.
E.
paragraph E, bullet point 2.
Under E? Oh, Heather, well, yeah, that was in the original, so that just got copied over from whatever the original was. You wanna put the, what is her title?
Finance manager,
Finance manager?
you could just put that title.
Probably use her last name too.
I forget where it was,
Yeah,
there was
finance
one
manager will enter the change order to Munis. Yeah, and originally it had Vince in there and I changed that to COO.
one of the acronyms was, I forget where it was, but, cause I corrected it, but it's like NBSBC instead of NGSBC in one spot. I think it was under maybe C.
Okay, under B it's right.
Yeah, right at the top. First bullet on C.
And G, yes, yeah, okay. Got it. Okay, anything else? That's it? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the, procedure, change order processing procedure as amended.
As amended. Second?
One second.
Second, Dennis? Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? Very good. I will incorporate this into our other procedures and send you out a clean copy. All right, thank you very much. Action recommendation on change orders, we have none.
Standing meeting at CJ Sparrow every Tuesday.
Find the code number for it.
All right, CM at risk, action on phase one bids.
Okay, so I sent out, after we received the bids on the 18th, that afternoon, I believe we sent out the bid results on the 2 trades we had for phase 1. Again, we were bidding both schools, so they had to give us pricing for both schools, and then we took the total. So you can't just pick and choose your low between one school and somebody else on low on a different school, you have to take the total low. So the bid results that are here are in the order of increasing value. So in the case of 1.26P, we did not receive 6 bids, we received 5 because somebody's bid came in too late, like 7 minutes too late. The low bidder is A&R Electric. And then you can see, so if you look at just the total between the 5 bidders, you range from 1,690,000 up to 2,003,000. So you can kind of see the variation there. And then in the case of site enabling, we received 5 bids there as well. And you can see these are very tight as far as the total values. And again, the single school values kind of are all over the place. You can see Richards Corp, who's low, his Norton number was 573, and you got a couple of 8s, and you got a 535 and a 969, so that I couldn't figure out the rhyme or reason over the split. We're just looking at the total bid on the, between the two schools. So with that information, I've also handed out, and we were supposed to get 3 more site bidders, just in case anybody wonders, up until the last minute, and like basically a couple of days before the bid, 3 of them pulled out. We knew that they were pulling out. There was a company called Avery, Gerber, and Giordano, and they gave varying reasons, but, so we had 5 bids. And again, it was kinda late in the year to be trying to bid site work for the summer. So with this information, we subsequently scoped the, we scoped J.E. Shea and A&R Electric, just because there was the, you know, the difference, cost difference there, just to make sure that A&R Electric had everything covered. Richards, we only scoped them, again, because the numbers were very tight, we're very familiar with Richards. And so what we did is we plugged in, so they, both the low bidders ended up scoping out and carrying the scope of work. We plugged in the numbers comparatively, that's where I gave this other spreadsheet, just so you can kind of see where everything is together. And, so we have the total GMP values, which, if anybody remembers when we came for our phase 1 estimate approvals, North End is over. So when we came to you with the phase 1 estimate, we were estimating it total to be 2.266, and we are at 2,599,000. And in the case of Norton, we are under. So, when we came to you for the estimate, it was 1,664,000, and we are presenting 1,443,000. So from a total standpoint, where was that? I had that somewhere. How far we were over. There it is. So, I guess I don't have it over, what the percentage is.
No, it wouldn't be much.
Well, it's not much, it was like less than 100,000.
Yeah.
But we also, just to also add, we are adding in, and I'm not asking you to prove the GMP, I'm just giving you the numbers so that you kind of see where everything plays in. We added an extra 25,000 because we're gonna be relocating, we're gonna need to relocate the existing utility poles at the Sharon Drive access at Norton, and that's a utility company fee. That's not anybody's money, it's gotta go to utility company. They're gonna, that needs to be carried, so that was not in our original estimate either.
There's 113,275 difference.
Right, and 25 is a part of that, so it's a little bit over, not much. When you look at the total of where we are, we're like 3% of the total construction value of both jobs, even where we are today, you know, so I mean, it's a tiny portion. We were over on their site work on North End, we're under on our site work on Norton, right, wrong, or indifferent. Again, it probably comes down to where they were shimmying monies from our site estimate to what actually got done in phase 1. So it just could be like an apportionment error in that respect. It's not like the scope changed. You got tight site bids, so, you know,
Can you go through the numbers again?
sure, which ones?
The estimate versus the phase 1 GMP.
As far as the,
This was the original estimate.
yeah, so the north end site number we had was 1,103,000, and you can see it came in at 1,363,475. Now, I say it came in at, but if, again, you pick and choose, right? Take a look at our low north end number, we did have a 1,187,000, so. Anyhow, we're talking about budget, right, per se. So 1,103,569 was our site for North End. Our electrical for North End was 910, and it came in at 960. So you can see how those were both over. If you look at the Norton, same thing. We had, for site work, we had about 729,000, and you can see it came in at 573,683. And for our electrical, we had 806, and it came in at 730. So So it's just how these guys like apportion the work between the two projects is what I'm figuring. Cause if I look at the total of the electrical, our total electrical between two jobs was 1,716,000, and you can see the total here is 1,690,000. So the math works, it's just the apportionment between the two jobs is kind of throwing it off. And I think the bidder for Norton, he may have carried too little, so he's just gonna make less money on it. He's still gonna
What bid?
provide per plans and specs.
Which contractor are you saying?
Our electrical, he was looking to substitute the generator, and we said,
Oh,
no
yeah.
way. So,
Do either of the bid packages have allowances in them?
yes, they do. In the case of electrical, each of those numbers, each school has a $20,000 allowance, lump sum. And that's just to get through the electrical, the device, the coordination study, in case something flushes out and we need to change breaker sizes. Cause right now they bid it per plans and specs, right, the sizing that's on
Understood.
it.
Who authorizes the use of that, I guess?
Well, it's a, how, feel, you guys all will, all three of you is four.
And then the electrical has 20K each, and what was the other one?
And the other one is the, site, and in the case of North End, I wanna say I've got about, there's 3 different allowances. There's probably about 17, 24, about 27,000 in North End. The majority of that is $17,000 just to continue monitoring in case we need to. The settlement platforms, it's just extra survey monitoring. The other 2 is just erosion controls until our phase 2 work starts, and some metal signs. In the case of Norton, it is 5 and 3, so it's about 8,000. On Norton, it's some additional erosion controls until the phase 2 site guy starts, and metal signs. So there's not much there.
Let's back up for a minute.
Question. Oh, go ahead.
Did you wanna see the site number?
No.
I have the site number.
What I think would be helpful, this is from April,
Yeah,
and this is from June,
Yeah,
so can we have everything in one document? So when
Just
you
like a
present
comparison,
numbers, can we also have the original estimate somewhere as a line item? So we don't have to dig through 3 months worth of paperwork?
yeah, it was our last estimate, so, yeah, I just don't know how to present it.
well, just be a matter
Just,
I
of
would have to
adding a
add
couple,
2 more
add a
columns.
couple more line or 2 to the,
Yeah,
to the spreadsheet, so that you're showing both the original estimate
yeah,
and the
cause
final.
that'll get
price.
too complicated in the big GMP when we're doing all our contractors, I think.
I think just when you send the PDF out to us, couldn't you just put it in as a page in the PDF? Against
Oh,
what-
this, the original cost summary,
yeah.
this,
Don't you
yeah.
say, right? You just don't wanna have to go back 3 months
Right.
to
Oh,
find it.
don't you wanna have budget?
Yeah, and I
That's
sent,
just one column.
yeah, I sent you
Yeah, just 2 jobs, I was
Laurel's
being, I guess I
email
had 2 different
from
sheets.
April saying here's.
Come on, with the GMP you're getting,
That is
you can be
right.
less frugal.
When I actually give you the next phase GMP document, it's gonna be called the contract summary award, so think about, we're gonna have like 23 bid packages. There, the budget estimate for each one will be right next to it, and it'll be in one spreadsheet, so you'll see it all.
Okay.
It's just, it was,
Helpful.
I didn't finish it here, this is just a little guy.
Comments
Let's
or
work out
questions?
the kinks with a little
Yes.
guys.
Yeah,
I'd like to defer my comments to Jeff.
Yeah, no, I think,
You got it?
yeah, I think you covered it adequately. I think in your some of the past work, it's bid package, budget, the contractors, the selected contractor, and then you see the math, so you can track. I mean, we all are
Where are
gonna
we
track
over,
it.
where are we under, right?
So it's a good way to do it, and if it was on this, it would be good too. So it's not
I like it
something that you
simple,
haven't done
yeah.
before. I
right,
just
right.
I think it's helpful to have them all on a sheet so you can just read it.
Yeah, and this is a good first experience that we have, that we're not dealing with big dollars, but.
Yeah,
those are
well,
coming.
actually, what I should do is probably just have 2 completely separate documents, one for North End and one for North, it's just that we bid them together. In the next phase, we're gonna have 2 completely separate bids, separate everything.
And we have to vote on them separately anyway.
Yes, yes.
So to go back to the previous conversation, something that Jeff brought up, the allowances subject to change order review?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything in our contract that talks about their trade allowances, so I'm sure everybody has to vet them. I just don't know if they come to the, when they come to the building committee, if it's before they're spent or afterwards.
Typically on the trade allowances, we'll just track those and then report on how we're using that allowance. If it's a GMP allowance where the work actually has been assigned to a particular trade package, we present any of those allowance changes to the committee for approval.
Right, so think about the additional survey monitoring, right? We have an allowance in there to cover the extra weeks, so it's there in case we need it. When it actually gets triggered and when that gets pulled, we'll be pulling it as soon as we need it, right? So I don't think they're looking for approval before we can start doing that.
Why not?
We need, because it's not the same, it's part of the work. It's in the work right now, it's in the numbers.
So you've already
So
approved
it's not a
that.
change order, it's gonna be in
It's
the
part of the contract, right?
So if you don't use it, does it come back to us?
Yes,
And
yes.
how do we know that?
Right.
because it'll be tracked,
Right on
it'll
track.
be,
But-
it'll be right on schedule of values.
But that's the point though. If it's not used, it comes back, so therefore, if it's being expended, then it should be reviewed by the change order.
But you're approving the overall value in the contract award.
I understand that,
We,
but it's.
we
it's-
are approving
it's
that,
part of
but
that.
there's an item in there that is a wild card,
Right,
and that's the
Mhm.
allowance.
Right.
right,
So, the wild card is not your money, it's our money that we're allowing you to use
correct,
if you need it.
right. It
But
just usually you don't do
We
a-
need to know when you pull the trigger on that, so we can keep track of it.
Right, and when, we'll know about the 20,000 with the electrical when we go through the submittal process, cause it's when the
Right.
submittals are going through, cause the device coordination study is gonna be the first thing that's done, short circuit study, whatever you call it, and then the submittals all gotta be done, and once the engineer starts changing stuff because of what's happened, that's when that allowance will be
Right.
utilized.
But that action should trigger a change order, internal change order, sure.
I agree.
How do we trigger a change order?
It's not a change order,
Not
but
until you
it's a
reconcile.
review that needs to be looked at, because whether it's a GMP allowance or if it's a subcontractor allowance, it's still, as Dennis says, it's a wild card, right? So we
Yeah, but
wanna know.
It's not a change order.
It's not a change order. It's not technically a
It's,
change
it's
order.
not technically a change order,
change
right?
order, but it's an expenditure against an allowance.
Correct.
Sure.
Which you will see
Yeah.
in every pay application, right? Cause it's gonna be broken down in pay
We'll see it
application.
in every pay application, but will we know that it's a valid one?
I suppose somebody could explain, there's not that many allowances, you can only have 2 per trade,
Well, we,
you know what I
we
mean?
do
There's-
in this package, how many allowances are we gonna have in the big package?
That's it,
It's
it's
just
2
two.
per trade is the most you
I-
can have.
The reason why I was asking is I just wanted to know in your budget and your bid, how much of your bid has an allowance that's there, that's all. And as you develop your bid packages, you're gonna have more, so it's just,
Right.
and it's all tracked on the application for payment anyway,
Right, that's
isn't
what I
it?
said.
Yeah.
So
We
it's
include
there.
in our monthly report, we'll
Yeah.
have an allowance tracking sheet that we track all the trade allowances that we present to the committee on a monthly basis.
Just in my head,
Just-
I just wanted to know if you had a bid, there's this much allowance.
See, I'm thinking of, an allowance comes with a unit price,
It could, yes,
Could.
right?
it could,
So, rock removal, we have an allowance of 1,000 yards of rock removal at $20 a yard. Contractor comes in, gives us an additional invoice for $5,000. How do we track how many yards got removed?
They do.
I
That's our
realize that, but maybe that's something that Chuck and I or the whole committee
You can review it, yeah.
disagree. But what triggers the review?
The application review typically, the monthly app review.
Oof, that's gonna be a nightmare.
Well, there's not gonna be a lot of allowances, or there shouldn't be.
Yeah, we'll have we'll have a tracking log that will track every trade allowance that we have within the contract. With what was spent against that allowance with the backup associated with that.
I just see that as being extremely cumbersome at requisition time.
Well, it's, it's typically left up to us to manage, to be honest with you. And that we're just providing the logs for backup so that you could, if you do wanna, read through it and say, okay, you had a $10,000 allowance or the $20,000 electrical allowance, we spend $5,000 on new breakers, here's the invoices that were applied, and, against that number, it's pretty clean cut.
So,
So-
using that example,
Yep.
why did we need new breakers?
Because, well, the whole thing is, we know there's gonna be changes because the coordination study hasn't been done yet. Traditionally, there's been changes. It's all to avoid having to do change orders. In other words, it's
Right.
already in the
Totally get
GMP.
that.
So it will be for things that you know you're gonna need, but you can't necessarily quantify. Like the surveying of the settlement platforms. We may not need it, I don't know, but we might. And it's good to get something in there as opposed to,
Oh, I'm
Mm.
not arguing the use of allowances. My argument is, who authorizes the expenditure against that allowance?
We do, usually.
Right,
The CN.
and what
On
I'm
the
saying
trade-off.
is, I think there needs to be a check and balance.
To,
And you
in
seem
order
be
to
agreeing.
authorize it, let us to start it,
Right,
yeah, that's not typical, but
Yeah, I would agree, because even though, you're putting an allowance in there so you don't have to create a change order, right? But we don't know the work needs to be done anyway, so if the work needs to be done, then it kind of triggers the change. And so
Right.
that should be reviewed. To Dennis's point is the check and a balance. You guys are looking at it, but I think that somebody from the owner's side should be looking at it too.
you will be on a monthly basis.
But at that point, it's already been expended.
Right.
Because now it's on your invoice. It should be something that that gets flagged,
Can we
that
not
says,
approve the invoice? Can we
Well, you will
not
know,
approve the
you will,
but you've
if there's
already,
only,
you've
if
already
there's
done the
only,
work.
there's only 2 per contract, you can ask, are you spending them yet? Are you spending them yet? Survey platform, you're gonna know whether or not we spend it. I mean, to have somebody give us extra signs on the fence, oh, we need a sign.
I think there's gotta be some sort of a recognition that, hey, look, you know what? The subcontractor needs to use this allowance.
Right.
Okay, let's just take a look at it and.
And, yeah, and sometimes the allowances are utility company, what the utility company's gonna
Well,
charge
that's
for
an
a
easy,
transformer.
that's
I mean-
that's an easy one, right? But I mean, the rock removal, I think, you have to quantify what the sum is, right? For a utility allowance, you're gonna know, you're carrying 25,000, cause you know that that's what it's gonna cost to, to.
Or what we think it's gonna cost.
Yeah. Well, when you're doing rock removal and you have unit prices, you don't know until you're quantifying it. And
Right, but we don't wanna
Right, but-
stop work and.
So
I
you-
understand
Right.
that, but I think that if there's a recognition that, hey, look, we're gonna be going into the allowances, that's why I think they've set up this advisory committee for changes, so that
or you can
they could be
spend
made
it
aware
in
of.
$4,900 increments, and you only have to go to Rick's.
But again, it's not a change order, so it's a
The
little.
whole idea of the allowance is to keep the project moving, right? So that we're not stopping every 5 minutes to ask for approval to do
Like
something that's.
Another allowance that we typically have is adding sprinkler heads. The fire marshal comes in towards the end of the job, you gotta have a sprinkler head. So we usually get 5 sprinkler heads with 10 feet of branch piping. And you're gonna do it right away, so it's like that's how you need to turn the building,
Well,
it could be
so-
exit signs.
My argument on that one would be sprinkler delegated design.
Mhm.
Why wasn't that designed properly?
Well, he's gonna design it, and the fire marshal's gonna review that shop drawing, and then who knows what happens in the field where there's a concealed condition, and then all of a sudden you have to add something in afterwards.
Then it wasn't designed properly.
Or it could be a changed condition in the field.
We're gonna take
Yeah.
that
That's-
allowance out.
That's why we need to have those conversations before it's on the requisition.
Well, I don't know how you can do it. I wish you just wanna talk about where the status of allowances is part of a monthly thing.
Well, again,
We
we've
do
been,
not wanna do that.
no, but in our monthly report, we will have an allowance, like I say, a tracking log that tracks all the trade allowances, what was expended, what's the balance for each of the allowances.
But that's after the
And
fact, though.
Yeah, right, 'cause we're out in the field, we're trying to keep the project moving,
Understood.
right? If our site guy says,
Sure.
or we say that, listen, we need to put a couple of additional, exit signs, or stop signs on our site, right, for safety.
Right.
We don't wanna have our guys stop and then reach out to the subcommittee to get approval to put up 2 additional signs that we have an allowance in the contract already for. Right? It just seems to be,
Well, the site,
It's gonna-
the site contractor is gonna come to you and say, we're gonna need to buy a couple more signs, right? So,
well, it's usually us asking for it, right? That's,
well, at that
Typically
point,
what happens.
but that point, you're also maybe reaching out to the owner and saying, hey, look, this is what we're doing.
Can we come back to this, these
Yep.
two particular phase one things? What are the allowances for the two trades?
Okay, so the electrical is just one allowance,
Yep.
each school,
For how much?
20,000 lump sum.
Okay.
And that is if we need it, once we get the coordination study done with the submittals. We'll know that right away.
Yep.
It's gonna be on the return submittals. We need to upsize a breaker, we need to do something. What's the price? We're gonna get the price. It's all gonna be done, but usually we just cover it with allowance.
and in
What's
that
the-
particular case, that's easy to present to the committee for
Yeah.
approval.
Yeah.
What's
Right.
the one for the site?
The site, there's 3 on north end.
Yep.
One is 5 metal sight signs, 2x2.
How much is it?
About 2,800, going from memory, they were 280 each times 5, whatever that math is, 1,400?
280 each times 5?
Yeah. And then 6 weeks of monitoring, additional survey of the satellite platforms,
How much is that?
that was 2,820 times 6, whatever that is,
18,000 shy of it.
16. And then the last thing was $7,000 lump sum, just to kind of keep an eye on the site from an erosion control standpoint. By the time they're done, which is, we're anticipating the end of October, until we start work on site. So it's like, whatever we need them for, if there's a storm, to respond to a storm. Again, we're not gonna be looking to the building committee, say, hey, can we go put hay bales out there? We wanna be able to put hay bales out there.
Instead of waiting a month to hear about these things, what if
There's
as
a
they
storm.
come up, an email is sent out to myself, Rich, Chuck, and Dennis? Each time anything comes up, just saying, here's the issue, we needed more rock than what was planned, here's what it's gonna cost.
There's only 2, so I don't know how much. There's only 2 allowances per trade, it's not
Well,
like
there may
it's a
not be
whole
much of
bunch.
anything, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, at least then it doesn't come as a
It's just that
surprise.
they're doing
at the
50
end of
other
the month.
things, you know? The field guys are more concerned about keeping the job going.
Well,
Well, for
That's
us,
that's a, 5-minute sitting at a computer and jotting an email by a guy who's on site.
There's no sitting at a computer 5 minutes and jotting an email. There's always a lot more to it than that. My opinion is, in the grand scheme of things, for this phase one stuff, it's not that much. We selected O&G because we trusted them to build 2 schools that are 85 million each. So I don't want to sit here and make this huge process over them using a contingency that we want them to keep the project moving. It seems kind of silly to me.
No, totally agree, except that we're setting a precedent for the big project.
Right, and you'll see the list of allowances that I'm proposing before we even finalize it. Like, we can agree on what we want and don't wanna have in there. It's just things that we typically run into. So we just can immediately fix them and remedy it and keep going. That's what they're for. They're not to try to get over on anybody, it's just keep it moving. And so it's not a change order.
I've expressed my opinion.
It's not changing light fixtures.
I have a question on the scoping process here. So you scoped, like when you're doing the scope review with them, that's to make sure they're kind of apples to apples and they're not including stuff that maybe you had like phase 2 that they're doing later on or something, or
It's
what's
just,
it for?
what we do is we just kinda go through the bid document, so we
Mhm.
only talked about phase 1.
Yeah.
And what we're expecting from them from the scope of work, so did you carry it, we talk about quantities, what was your approach, how did you foresee doing something? So it's just making sure that they fully understand what it is that they're being hired for. And so in the case of the electrician, it was very clear on the drawings, we had bold dashed lines, this is the equipment you're procuring, did you get all this? Yes, you have all that, you have the sizes, you have the manufacturers, cause that was it has to be one of the 3 specified manufacturers, yes, you do.
Got it.
So it's that type of conversation.
So the 2 for the electrical, I mean, in the total, I guess, for the 2 schools, it's only like 8% higher, but you did the detailed scope review between the 2 of them, right, for the top 2?
Yeah, the only reason why I did the second one is because there was quite a dollar value gap there, And I really wanted to flesh out what was going on with Norton, cause there was such a huge difference. If you look at between 960 and 990, not so much, but you get from the 730 to the 845, it's like, whoa. So I was trying to flesh out if there was an issue there that this lower guy was missing.
But he
That's
did.
So
Yeah.
like the same, on that same wave of thinking then, why didn't we do a scope review for the site enabling stuff? Cause there's like a 30% difference between the north.
Between the 19, well, I did, I looked at the totals, so 1,930,000 versus the 2,017,000 was
Yeah.
pretty close in the scheme of things.
Mhm.
And we know Richards well, so we just went through their quantities and made sure that they carried everything that they needed to. So the 810,000 for work at Norton for site work with what we're doing, which is literally just that rigid frame, relocating a driveway and creating a temporary play area, it just, you know, just seemed,
But it's like on par with like what three of them gave,
Right.
right?
yeah, and we
But
had
the
720.
major difference between the scope, or the total, 70,000 over 2 million, it's not that much when you look
Right.
at 30% of it was at
And that's
Norton.
why it's like what they apportioned to North End versus Norton, that's why it's hard to judge it on the bid form. Cause I know people may have been putting more numbers on one versus the other. It's not a true single school bid. In other words, when we just bid North End, that's what North End is. They'll just be concentrating on that. This could just be, who knows? I don't know what they did.
Where the job supers gonna be?
Who?
Where the job supers gonna be?
Yeah,
It could be, right, the
probably.
general
I mean,
conditions
you
and
have
how they're
no-
applying to each project.
And I tried to do the percentage, like the percentage between the two schools, and it still wasn't jiving. We're all over the place. We got, well, I guess the electricians were kinda close, 55-45, 60-40.
So you really should just be looking at the total bid.
Yeah,
is
you
what
should
you're
just be
saying.
looking at total. Site is Richards is 70-30, Nozzle and Guerrero are both 60-40 splits, Mathers is 25% split, and Mizzy's 55-45. I don't know, it's the same job, you know? It's just, to me, I think it's just how
They all knew they
Fill
were
that.
getting selected on the total,
yes,
so
that's why I
how
wasn't
they
gonna get
split it
hung
up
up.
how they split it up is their
Really
business.
Yeah.
inconsequential for us.
I mean, it's
Right.
affecting us only because, you know,
You can see
we're
it.
plugging it into the budget.
Yeah,
So you did or didn't, so you only met Richards is what,
I only met Richards with the site, yeah, I talked to Nozzle on the phone, but the formal scope review we just did with Richards, but yet we did J.E. Shea and, A&R.
And since the Norton project is the tighter one financially, we're better off with that one. Is a smaller number. Are we ready to make a motion? We have 4 motions that we need to make on the bid package 1.33 site enabling. We need a motion to approve the new North End Elementary School to Richards Corporation for $1,363,475. Do we have a motion? So moved. So moved. Second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Jeff, did you vote? I couldn't see.
I'm sorry, I did not vote. Well, I feel like I'm kinda in the naughty boy corner.
All right.
I apologize. I'm in favor of it.
Okay. New Norton Elementary School, again to Richards Corporation for site enabling, $573,683. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Craig, second? Dennis, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Very good, unanimous. And I saw Jeff's hand last time.
Yes.
Give him a little whack in the side there, thanks.
Beat into it. He's on it now.
Bid package 1.26P, electrical equipment, ATS, and generator purchase to A&R Electric Incorporated, the new North End Elementary School, $960,000 even. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second?
Second.
Greg, discussion? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous. New Norton Elementary School, also A&R Electric Incorporated, 730,000 even. A motion? Dennis, second?
Second.
Greg? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And once again unanimous. Very good. Thank you. All right.
So do we need to approve no ONC numbers?
No, I was not prepared to present that, I just was putting a cost summary sheet together so that you can kind of see where everything stood and as far as cost-wise. We can discuss if you wanted to, you can take a look at it, we'll talk about it next time, is the CM staffing matrix, because that's the first time you're seeing that. You know, if anybody wants to talk about that, we can tonight, or you can wait. You can wait.
Now that we approved it, when can we expect a shovel in the ground? I'm sure people ask that. how they're
July
spending
23rd.
money. July
That
23rd.
was on our schedule,
schools?
July 23rd, yep. That's physically showing up.
And with that in mind, schedule.
Yes, so that's it, you're keeping me on schedule, thank you very much, appreciate that.
And I do
Nothing
not have a
else,
copy.
yeah, there's nothing else that,
Did you hand out a schedule?
no,
Oh,
so we're on our second meeting, so.
okay.
Did our scope review, issuing the limit notice to proceed tomorrow, and I will be for your meeting on the 11th. I hope to I'll have this whole thing done, it will no longer be a work in progress, it'll be the complete document. And I'm not looking for approval at that meeting, I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, I would like to do it for the 25th, but it really doesn't matter, just until we won't be able to bill until this is settled. So, my goal is for your next meeting, so that you can at least start looking at it. Should I send a copy of, once I'm done with it, to Jeff D'Onofrio? When I'm giving it to you
Yeah,
guys,
with the
does he
CC
want
to
to
me.
review it?
Yep, with a CC.
Well, when I send it out, right?
Well, normally, you know, you'd send that out to myself and Jeff, we take a look at it, I would forward it out to the committee.
Right, so send it to Jeff D'Onofrio at the same time.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
fine.
Alright, so we'll do that.
Yeah, he doesn't wanna get inundated with a lot of the small stuff, but he does wanna stay involved with any of the contractual pieces.
Right, and so this is considered an attachment, so this will be attached to an AIA, document, that's how you amend the contract, but it'll really be referencing this particular
So
attachment.
we'll let Jeff take a look at it, and then, based on his input, any revision you might make, and then we'll send it out to the committee before the next meeting.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
So I really don't have anything else about the schedule.
Okay. Very good. Owner's rep, open item log update.
Okay, so, as of the last meeting when we talked about closing some items and we, I think we discussed, you know, having visuals on the documents. We discussed it with the project team. Most of these items are design development document comments, so they have to do with the design team. Justin and I did talk about it. We are keeping them pending, and once the construction documents are issued, we're gonna use the open items log as a checklist to go through and then just verify that, you know, we can see visually that the work is done or addressed.
With that in mind, or is the 7/31?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these pending dates, because we thought we were able to address them, but I think a lot of the comments that we got the last time was, you know, we wanna verify that, so the dates are pushed out. The documents are coming out on the 26th, from what I.
4 weeks from today, the review documents for North End. 6 weeks from today, the documents for
Yeah.
Norton.
Yeah, 25th.
But Rich,
25th.
So 7/21.
excuse me though, Rich, I understand everything you're saying, but
25th.
items 29 and 34, I believe, are phase one, so have those been reviewed and checked for the electrical equipment that's being ordered to see if those are gonna be addressed, because it's gonna be a little late come CD time, right?
Yes, anything that affects phase one should be settled or soon.
So, has 29 and 34 been settled?
We will
Yes.
get a solid answer to those and with a description of where it's found in the documents.
And 34 is know it says will coordinate with the district, but it also needs to coordinate with the design standards by the state, because
Yeah.
there's a minimum requirement. It's not just an opinion, unless of course we exceed.
Right.
But I don't think we're gonna look to exceed.
So as I had reported at the last meeting, we do have a couple of upcoming NGSBC meetings prior to those documents being issued. We would like to take the opportunity to throw some of the graphic-oriented responses on the screen at our next two NGSBC meetings, so you can present us getting back to, or you can expect us getting back to kind of a show and tell in those two meetings. But we will make sure that we go through, this is the hidden list. You'll notice that some of the numbers jump around. We'll unhide everything and we'll go through and we'll code the answers to what sheets they are on the documents prior to you guys having to go through and search for it. So we'll make sure that happens as well.
I feel
66 is
confident if
another
you
phase
verify
one,
to me
Chris.
that it's taken care of.
Yeah.
Chris, 66 is another phase one, I would think, electric panels, because we're ordering them.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
Justin, in your 4-week delivery, is that PDFs?
Yes. So those go PDFs to the committee. Those will, and I believe those are PDFs to our third-party reviewers. Ultimately, those all get part of a PCR set that needs hard signatures from the fire marshal, the building official, the local ADA coordinator, 504 ADA coordinator, which is typically the building official, and the local health district. So there are a number of areas that our drawing cover needs to have those signatures. Our list of drawings need to have those signatures. Our project manuals cover needs to have the AHJ signatures, and our table of contents in our project manual has to have the AHJ signatures. And we're gonna ask for and it is required by the state to have a letter from the fire marshal saying that they agree and concur with the no parking fire lane striping on the site plan. It's one of those things that they've seen so many change orders come through about fire marshals changing their minds about striping that they just ask them to validate it beforehand, so.
When would you be taking these plans back up to the state?
We're scheduling our PCR review for after,
Sometime in September, I think.
yeah, beginning of October, I think, is when they are, so.
The first one,
So I think we were scheduling about 2 months from when the documents come out, so documents come out end of July, we're looking at.
September
Yeah,
18th,
end of
or-
September, early October,
Yeah.
as Justin said. So, one of the things that we learned in going through phase one was that the ADA coordinator, the building inspector, the fire marshal, and then the health inspector all wanted to see these documents. Even though we're gonna have an independent review, they wanted to be able to take a look at them so that they had eyes on them too. So, that's one of the things that's on our open items log, is to make sure that each one of those individuals gets a set of documents, as well as the third-party reviewers. So we'll have the documents going to the third-party reviewers, we'll have them going to the local authorities, even though they're not doing the review. They wanted to have the documents so that they can actually thumb through them, because they are putting their signatures
Because
on.
if we're hoping to get out to bid and to start construction in December, that's a tight timeline.
We're not gonna get sign-offs from, we're not gonna get approvals from the state until we get the sign-offs from the local authorities. And we're not gonna get the sign-offs from the local authorities, from what we've learned, until they have a set of documents.
so they're gonna get the July 25th set too,
Yes.
and Versteeg's gonna review it.
Versteeg is reviewing
And
it.
then they'll be able to see what Versteeg is doing as well.
Yeah.
Check with, Sean, because I don't think the building official is.
No, it's not, it's Merrick Clement.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Merrick's been more involved in our project
Yeah.
already, so.
Yeah, Yeah, we already knew that, Dennis, so we're good.
Okay, architect update, we've sort of been doing that. but-
Yeah, so, a lot of, this update, is, it reflects the work to support getting to the authorization earlier for the phase one, early procurement and site enabling. So we participated in 3, bid scope reviews last week. So we have been involved in, the conversations with ONG. We have also issued the plumbing code modifications, for North End and Norton. Those are part of your packet. This is to, it's basically an accepted practice to reduce the required amount of plumbing fixtures that are based on a simultaneous occupancy. So if you were to take all of the rooms in each school, you would have over 3,000 occupants scheduled to be within the schools. We know that that's not going to be the case. If we were to take the actual calculated amount of occupants, we'd have toilets everywhere in the school. We'd have way more toilets than we need. So what the request is to take the actual amount of people, which are the students plus the faculty, and say that should be our baseline, our criteria for plumbing fixtures. We have 300% of that are being provided at each school. So that has been issued, that goes first to the local building official. So Mr. Lozier has already, he needs to sign this. The document that you have is the native file that got sent to him. He signed it and has already issued it to the Office of the State Building Inspector. So it needs, any code modification first needs to get local endorsement before it goes to the state. So that has already happened. We held our Playscape coordination meeting last week. I thought it was a very successful meeting. It was nice to have members of the faculty involved. We have another one. We need to schedule the next one to incorporate some of the items that were discussed. We held a
Did you get feedback on both schools? or-
Yes, yep, we went through.
I knew the pre-K people
Yep.
at North would be very involved.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't certain, if there were people that, at the K-5 level or at both schools that would be as involved.
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
probably the most discussion we've ever had on anything that's been presented
Yeah.
so far. Playscape's obviously very important to the principals and the staff.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, this is the time to talk about it.
Yeah.
We did have a coordination meeting last Thursday with the steel pre-detailer. That was held in our office just to kind of get some of the communication protocols down. They're gonna start kind of a soft start, the middle to the end of next month in July to start laying out column grids, etc. They're gonna use our review sets to start that work for the pre-detailing. So that, it was good to have that kickoff meeting. We have a Chespercott Health District food service pre-application meeting that we're just holding with the food service equipment designer next Tuesday morning. I didn't feel the need to have district representation there, but Vin, Jeff, you let me know if it's otherwise. This is more of this is what's coming down the pike for a review, because we're gonna be asking for these signatures before the permit the permit is applied for. We like to have this reach out to the AHJ so that they know that this is coming down the pike, because anytime you're asking for somebody's signature on a document, that's when it starts to get real, and that's when sometimes if they're not aware of the state process, it becomes a little challenging. So we're just holding a soft kind of walkthrough of the documents next week, next Tuesday morning with Ms. Pannone at the Chespercott.
This is both schools, right?
Yes, both schools. Otherwise, we have our kind of ongoing list of things that we're validating with facilities and operations, and coming up soon, we do need to get on the other side of what sole source requests we are going to ask the state to allow us to have a sole source. Typically, commonly, door hardware is one we wanna make sure that we align with the district's door hardware standards, so we'll draft what's called a sole source request to the state, which means it's a proprietary spec. I believe so far we've opened the alternate manufacturers for BMS, building management systems, and fire alarm. So I don't necessarily think that we will be asking for a sole source for both of those, but that's something that we'll be validating in the next month or so. Other than that, I provided just some floor plan updates, some nice colored floor plans in your packet, just to show you.
Are there any changes to the floor plan?
There are just some modest ones with the incorporation of health room and some cleanup of the entry sequences in some of the admin offices. I'll make sure to flag these for our presentation at the next one. But nothing necessarily programmatically.
No elevator changes?
No elevator changes. Not gonna do that one again. With that, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And these were all part of the PDF that was distributed yesterday, so if you're having a hard time reading them, you can certainly blow them up
Yeah,
on the
that's what
screen
I
as
do.
well.
I put it on my computer. You see a lot easier that way. Overall, I was impressed. It seemed to work very well. Storage rooms for the grade levels, workrooms for the grade levels. I looked at things like that. Storage for chairs for the CAF.
You guys want storage in your school buildings? Come on.
I think I told you when we had the dedication of the school that I built in Middlebury, the architect introduced it to me as rich storage closet. He said he has never run into a guy who had such a fetish for storage closets. But I had worked in a building that had almost no storage. And it was a constant problem, so when we built the next building, I really was pushing hard to make sure that the teachers had plenty of storage, so.
Yeah.
Little things like that. And I'll tell you, we went around, the school modernization committee, I was in charge of a subcommittee where we went and talked to the teachers at each of the schools. And I would think the number one item that came up was storage. When we talked, particularly at the elementary level. People just didn't have any place to keep things, and they had them piled up in places. So it will be a complaint even after we open this building. So. But at least you've tried. But I like the way the offices now flow and the health area flows. I know we had moved some stuff around there. I think particularly at the north end, that change has made a real improvement in the layout. Adding in the what we're calling the professional development room, the teachers' room. I think was a good move also. I know there was conversation about making sure that there's a gathering place for all the staff. Any other input or comments or questions that we have for Justin or Jeff? Any other general comments or questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, second? Greg? All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.